Hello, everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm Richard Carlton here at FMTrain.tv, the creator of FMTrain.tv, and I am back in the driver's seat today. Margaret is being wingman, but I think she's going to disengage at some point. She needs some time off. It's vacation time for Margaret. I'm going to press the button right here. We're going to go to FMTrain.tv. This is kind of the headquarters for the shenanigans that we do. So if you want to know what shenanigans we have, FMTrain.tv, you can scroll down. The left side is the live training button. This reads, I always tell people this, I use FileMaker. We eat our own dog food. So down below is a bowl of Alpo dog food for you. We got today is out of our database. Today is Jesse Barnum. 360Works MirrorSync. Probably, well, by far the most important syncing product on the planet in the FileMaker community, by far. And probably one of the most important third-party applications that you can get into. Then tomorrow, I'm going to be covering SendGrid, outbound emails with SMTP and FileMaker. This is SMTP in the world of FileMaker is surprisingly a pile of dog shit. It's really bad. It's not really Claris's issue so much. Largely, it's an issue that SMTP with all the bad actors, people phishing, sending fraudulent emails, sending spam emails, all the bad things that go on with email besides good stuff. There's a lot of, they've got a high barrier of security for that. And so I'm going to be covering SendGrid tomorrow. I will loosely talk about other options, but it's an option where you're building a FileMaker solution. You need it to send outbound email reliably, and the IT company of your customer, whether that's you or someone else, the IT people are not extraordinarily competent, and getting them to get you set up so you can send email out is kind of questionable. So that's what tomorrow's about. In fact, even 360Works have a product for that, and of course, Monkey Bread does too. And then next week, Nick Hunter will be back. I think Margaret will be here, but we'll check that out. And then the ultra minimal audit logs in FileMaker, kind of a beginning to intermediate conversation. It's not ultra log. I didn't say that. Ultra log is a product. Is the ultra minimal? It's the idea of basically keeping track of little edits that your users make to the database. When they tell you the dog ate their homework, if you have a little evidence of how they got there, doing it lightweight with pea sauce is the conversation for Thursday. Once again, all these ideas are coming back from me doing a live rollout with a customer. And that customer has decided that they love FileMaker. And every time I show up, they're going like, and they go like this way. They go like this. Hey, Carlton, I really like what you're building, but it'd be really great if it would, and then insert the blank. That's the power of the FileMaker platform. I wish I could take that moment and encapsulate it. All of you are here because you've seen that before. The people who are new to the FileMaker community have never heard of FileMaker. When you go to a customer and you build a solution and it changes their life, and you get the personal satisfaction of being paid to do, it's like a doctor who saves someone from cancer. All of you are business doctors, you're organizational doctors. You go into the organizations and you rip out the malfeasance, the inefficiencies, the horrible processes. You're like the cancer doctors. It's like, well, you only have 6 months to live before the company goes out of business. I give you 6 months, but I can come in and we can try to save you. Like, beep, beep, a little operator. I even have a jacket in here for Nick. It says Dr. Nick as his doctor, like a FileMaker doctor, right? It's really what you are. Everyone here, you are very special. Whether anyone tells you that or not, I know that to be true. And I'm not being mean. I'm not being sly. I'm being positive. I'm telling you, if people knew how great this was, they would be blown away and everyone would want to do this. Our job is to talk about the platform, educate you. You can educate me along the way. Today, I'm going to get educated by Jesse Barnum. Whenever Jesse shows up, I learn new shit. So I want you to feel good about what you're doing, understand what you're doing matters. You matter, what you do matters. Yeah, you're literally business doctors, organizational doctors, whether it's a business or school or whatever. For your own organization, or you're a doctor, like an on-call doctor, and you show up, you do that. So that's great. So that's the upcoming broadcast schedule. All right, so let's talk about Jesse Barnum. Jesse Barnum is this questionable individual. I actually like Jesse quite a bit. I'm going to make him bigger. Margaret, are we recording him over here? Hopefully he's recording. There he is. He has that like professory look.
Oh, crap. Can people see me?
Now they can see you.
I've just been trying not to crack up listening to you because I'm like, I think my mic's on.
It's totally true. It's everything I said was true. FileMaker are people solve business problems. They like ripping diseases out of businesses and saving businesses. Moving along today to FileMaker awesomeness. So I'm going to share your screen momentarily, Jesse, but as we say, I'm going to tee this up for you. So I'm going to send you a big softball. Pretend that you're a politician, and I'm asking a really easy question. Jesse, do you love puppies and kitties? Or do you want to kill all puppies and kitties on the okay? Answer
Puppies, kitties, good.
right. That softball question. So here's what instead of Jesse telling you who he is, I'm going to remove him off the screen. Let me tell you real quick. So those of you know, Jesse Barnum, Monkey Bread, Nick Orr, a couple other plugin people are fantastic. They really help the platform move it forward, keep it awesome. And without them, FileMaker would be dead. I personally presented at DevCon to about 1,100 people. In fact, everyone was complaining that my DevCon presentation it was 2005 or 6, and I was presenting, and everyone bailed on the other sessions and came to mine because they wanted to see about digital document management. FileMaker did not add digital document management until FileMaker 12. So all those years beforehand, they didn't think it was important. They always chase the pack, right? So it's up to plugin manufacturers to make great products to move the platform forward. Jesse personally made a digital document management called Super Container, and that product is still, I think, available, but I don't really use it too much because FileMaker has a built-in capability that mostly does what I need, and I don't need this product for that. But FileMaker, the platform, the corporation, they don't have any sync. There is no sync. If you try, I had a senior engineer the other day come to me and said, actually a former senior engineer, come to me and goes, yeah, I'm not going to buy a MirrorSync or anything else. I'm going to roll my own sync engine and solution. I'm like, and this guy doesn't work for me anymore because basically he would decide what he's going to do, and it doesn't matter what his boss thinks. And so he went off to build that. 300 hours later, he goes, that was the dumbest thing I ever did, and it's still not working, and it sucks, and now I have to go buy MirrorSync. And I went, yeah. So if you think you're going to save the money by writing, unless you work for 10 cents or $1 an hour or some horribly, pathetically low price number like that, you cannot build your own sync solution competently with reliability for less than what Jesse's going to charge for MirrorSync. So MirrorSync allows you to have offline solutions. I had a customer, they were working out in the Mojave Desert, customers all over the place, and they could not have a live internet connection. Now we have the Starlink stuff, but let's assume that the Russians are able to shoot down a couple Starlink satellites and cause a gap in the action, right? The point is that if you don't have internet access, you don't have Starlink, and you're being shot at by bad guys, then you need MirrorSync.
Or if you just want your solution to be fast.
Or if you just want to be fast because the solution is around the planet. Now, I will upfront say that I did a live stream, which was my most favorite ever live stream. It was 5 days with Jesse here. And normally you have a FileMaker solution has a server, and people log in the server. If it gets too slow, then they can take an offline copy. We had an enterprise deployment. It's something to this day Claris has still not decided to do. And that's where we had 5 FileMaker servers around the planet: Mumbai, India, Japan, Australia. We also had UK, and then the East and West Coast of the United States. There was like 5 or 6 of these, and they were all running MirrorSync. And if you paid an edit to one, within about 20 seconds, your edits and changes would populate to all the other FileMaker servers around the globe, and the people would access the server closest to them. It's the most freaking awesome live stream I've ever done. And of course, people are like, wow, that's really impressive. MirrorSync does that. With that TV commercial where the ladies, people are singing, FileMaker does that, right? So FileMaker does that with MirrorSync. So that's kind of an extreme deployment option. Today, we're going to have Jesse demonstrate and build out for us, and from scratch, a MirrorSync deployment with a copy of Starting Point, because that's easy. It's a known commodity, so that way we don't have to worry about that too much. And if anything breaks, we blame it on Nick, is the idea. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and you're going to share, Jesse Barnum, your screen. All right, so this is Jesse. This is Starting Point. So tee us up. What are we looking at? What's the deal here? Go.
Richard, thank you for that intro. That was really great. I would say there's 3 primary use cases for MirrorSync. I'm going to talk about the third. So let me just talk about the first and second. The first one is exactly what Richard just said. You've got multiple FileMaker servers, either in the same data center, and you want some like hot failover replication clustering stuff so that you can't go down, or you've got it multiple locations around the world so that people, in different offices can communicate with each other. That's our first use case. Second, which is becoming, we've had more and more interest in this recently, syncing FileMaker server to a non-FileMaker database, syncing it to MySQL, syncing it to Oracle, syncing it to SQL Server, syncing it to Amazon's DynamoDB, Redshift, Salesforce. These are all supported systems from MirrorSync, and so there's a lot of integration that you can do that's really, really cool. My personal favorite among all the ones I just mentioned is Dynamo, because it's the one that Amazon.com runs on, and last year at Prime Day, I think they ran 82 million transactions per second on DynamoDB
Yeah.
during the
And
peak of their Prime Day. And so with MirrorSync, FileMaker Server can basically sync to that same database engine. So basically, if you're ever worried about how am I going to scale this web application in FileMaker, talk to me about MirrorSync. We can talk about that.
yeah.
Richard, I talked over you. What were you going to say?
No, I just was that was such a huge that whole DynamoDB and understand what a transactional database is versus a eventually consistent database kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Jesse set me aside at DEF CON and said, Carlton, you don't know what you're from a hole in the ground. He says this.
It's not what I
And then I
said.
sat there and I listened and I learned and I was blown away by the database engine that Amazon uses. They basically built their own, but even like a SQL system, like if there are no transactional systems that can scale to support the entire planet. Basically, Amazon Dynamo supports the entire planet in one database effectively. They could. It doesn't run out of horsepower. So how does that happen? That's a whole training day. If you folks want to do that sometime and talk about it, I have no relevant experience, but Jesse is a ninja at that. So
I'm going to talk about the third use case, which is
yeah.
the one that is the most popular and the most common, which is a client to server sync. It's basically you want to have a copy of, you've got a database on your FileMaker server. You have people that want to access that database, but either number one, they don't have reliable internet, or two, it's just slow. And in either case, the solution is take a copy of that FileMaker database, put it on your laptop or your phone or your iPad, work on that copy of the database, and then just sync every so often. And everything from the server comes down to your local copy. Everything from your local copy goes up to the server. It's incredibly fast. Even this is kind of funny, but even really badly designed FileMaker databases that are slow as crap.
Some of you know I'm pointing at you, and I'm not going to embarrass you, but you know who you are.
Even really badly designed FileMaker databases that just beach ball constantly run really, really fast when you put them on your own local computer. So it's really fast, and it's great if you're not sure whether you're going to have working internet or not. It's also really great to not worry about getting disconnected in the middle of something that you're doing. If you're driving, if you've got people like one of our biggest MirrorSync customers, they're an ambulance service, and they have thousands of people using MirrorSync in Ohio. And so when they have ambulances driving into the hospital with people, they have working cellular data, except when they don't. So they enter all of their patient data in the truck as they're rolling. When they get to the hospital, they sync it. And by the time the person's going in through the doors of the hospital already has that information from the sync. So there's a lot of potential use cases for it. What I've done here, getting to the demo here, is I've taken FM starting point, and I've done the MirrorSync setup process on that. I've already done that here. I'm going to come back and show you the process after I first just kind of show you what it looks like to use MirrorSync.
Yeah.
And what it looks like is really simple. You just go into your system, you make changes, and then you run a sync. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to create a new record. I'm going to create a record for myself. And now this isn't going to be very impressive when I sync it, because you're like, okay, well, what just happened? So in order to show you that,
where's the server one at?
Yeah, I'm going to show you the server version so you can see what I'm doing here.
Ooh, Linux server.
Yeah. Oh, that's I totally buried the lead there. The big announcement in this version of MirrorSync 6.5, and actually it's not just MirrorSync, it's all of our products, with the exception of SafetyNet, Plastic, and Scribe, which we're still working on. But every other product that we have now runs on Mac, Intel, Mac,
M1.
M1, M2,
Yeah, M.
Windows 32-bit, Windows 64-bit, Linux Ubuntu 22 on Intel chips, and Linux
ARM.
64-bit on
On
ARM
ARM.
chips as well. So if you're running the new FileMaker 2023 and you want to run it on a Linux ARM processor, which is, I think it's really cool that Claris is supporting that, you'll be able to do that with our products as well, and not just MirrorSync, like almost all of our plugins and all of our products.
Yeah, yeah. That's
So
great.
that was the big release for us. And honestly, I mean, I'll be really upfront about this. Our products have been languishing for a while. It's been a while since we really put out significant updates. We've just been really busy with other stuff. So I'm really excited that after we've had people just asking us all the time, why does your stuff run on Linux yet? And I apologize. I mean, we were slow on it, but we're there now. And so everything is kind of fresh and new, and it's all been updated and overhauled. And some of our customers, by the way, if you're on this call and we've ever built a custom plugin for you, just contact us. We can rebuild your custom plugin using the same framework so that your custom plugin will
Okay,
also
so
run on
I
this
do
new
I
platform.
do have one comment here for everyone. So you just listed off like 6 or 7 operating systems. What is using 32-bit on Intel? What is that? You said
If you, I don't even know. I don't keep track of versions of Windows very well, but I do know that we have customers that send us support tickets that are running 32-bit versions of Windows, like on their old plasticky towers sitting under their desks that the janitor forgot to throw away or something like that.
if anyone's on Discord, you want to chat back, or on YouTube or Twitch, Margaret's here also running. Let me know if you have a active clients that are using 32-bit on Intel, because on Macs it had been deprecated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but back up. So how far back does this stuff work, right? Like if I'm like, oh, I'm on FileMaker 17 and I'm not gonna upgrade, right? We hear that.
Right. So MirrorSync requires FileMaker 18 or later. The reason for that, by the way, is because we use the data API and the admin API, and that only exists in 18 or later.
Okay.
We do have MirrorSync 5, which ran in FileMaker 10 or later. So if you're a holdout and you're still running FileMaker 14 or something like that, and you really want to use MirrorSync, contact us. We'll get you an older version that still runs on those older platforms.
Okay.
We don't do free support for those anymore. So if you want help, we're going to charge you a support rate, but we can still run our old versions of our products on FileMaker 10 or later. But the new version of MirrorSync 6 and 6.5, they require FileMaker server 18 or later. Our plugins will work on FileMaker 16 or later. They changed their plugin API substantially in FileMaker 16 to work better on the server. So that's why we cut off everything prior to 16.
Okay, cool. So let's jump back here, take a look. So the one on the bottom right is the server hosted one. Is that what we're looking at?
No, the one on the bottom right is my local version.
Okay, and the one
this one's offline.
Okay.
And I can show you that just as a quick way. If I go to the file menu, save a copy as, that's a quick way to check. Yeah. If you save a copy as, that means you're working on your own copy of the file. If you go to a hosted file and you go to the file menu, it's going to be grayed out.
That's right. Okay, good. All right. Show us the magic. I mean, I expect this to be very boring, right?
It's really is kind of a boring demo.
Yeah, but if you actually are a doctor, this is for like doctor, like coming to us with a new scalpel or a new like robotic surgery thing. This helps us save patients, business patients. Yep. This is awesome.
There's really I'm going to talk about the setup process, and the setup process is the best part of this thing because it's really, really simple. So anyway, I'm here in my offline copy. I've created a new record for Jesse. Notice that Jesse's not in the server copy. I'm going to go to my scripts menu. I'm going to run MirrorSync. It's just a regular FileMaker script. There's nothing that I had to install on my computer. I did need to, I'll come back and talk about this in a second. Well, okay, let's talk about it now. So in the FileMaker hub node on Linux 1, in the contacts database, we added 1 new record, and in the audit log database, we added 2 records. Now, I didn't even know about the audit log table. I didn't do anything in the audit log table. That's triggered scripts running in the background automatically that Richard and his guys created that does that. And the nice thing is with MirrorSync, you don't have to know or care which tables got modified. You just say run the sync. MirrorSync goes across all the tables, finds whatever changed, and it pushes those up to the server. So it just finished doing that. And so now I can see here's Jesse Barnum in both places. So that is basically the premise of the sync. Now let me talk about, from an installation standpoint, there is some software that I installed on the server. There's nothing that got installed on the offline copy. This is just plain vanilla FileMaker, whether you're running FileMaker Pro or FileMaker Go, whether you're on an iPhone, a laptop, or an iPad. There's no plugins. There's nothing that you need. There's no app that you need to download from the App Store. There's no special extension. There's no native code. It's all just FileMaker scripting. Mostly it uses the insert from URL to communicate back and forth with MirrorSync. But there is nothing, it's not a plugin like our other products that needs to be installed. It's just a script that any user can run. And you can trigger the script from anywhere you want. You can stick it on a button. You could put it on a script trigger. You could run it on an on timer. You could run it as a scheduled script on FileMaker server. Anywhere you can run a script, you can run MirrorSync. So that's an insert. Let me get straight to the kind of the question that everybody asks me is about conflict resolution. So let's just get that out of the way right now. So I'm going to go into Jesse's record. I'm going to modify Jesse's phone number. And then I'm going to come over on the server. I'm going to go into Jesse's record. Notice I don't have any phone number here because I haven't synced this yet. I'm going to modify the same record. And I'm going to modify Jesse's website address. So now I've changed the same record on the server as I have on my offline copy. What's going to happen? So I'm going to run it, go to my script. I'm going to run the sync. I didn't click out of the record up here. My bad. Let me try this again. Well, the problem, by the way, was because I was still editing the record. So MirrorSync can't edit the record, just like you can't edit, just like one FileMaker user can't edit another FileMaker's user record while they're editing it. That's the same problem I just ran into. So I had to click off of the record. And I did that. You'll notice that it says modified on both the hub, which is the server, and the spoke, which is my FileMaker database here on my laptop. So what did it do? It merged those changes together. So I can see here's my phone number, here's my website address, here's my phone number, here's my website address. MirrorSync is smart enough to know, okay, well, they changed the same record, but they changed different fields. So let's figure out which fields changed on which ones and merge all those together. So what if we change the same field? So I'm going to say, I'm going to do that. And then somebody over on here says, oh, I just like, what if it was just 360works.com? Now I've changed the same record. And let me not make the same mistake as last time and click off of the record. Now I've changed the same record, same field in both cases. Now what's going to happen? We run this. Now, MirrorSync can't solve this for you because MirrorSync doesn't know which one you want. But what it can do is it can make it really easy for the user to solve it themselves. And it says the same record was modified both on your local copy and the server for the following table, sync contact. So I could just cancel it and I could be like, I'll fix it later. Or I can resolve it. I'm going to click resolve. I've got two monitors here, so it's popping open in my other screen. I'm going to drag that over here. And you get a screen like this. And this works really great on an iPhone and an iPad too. So this is what this looks like. Click in here, and now I come down to here, and I can say, oh, somebody changed the website to two different things. What do I want? I like this one. I'm going to click that way with that arrow. And then I must have changed I think I inadvertently changed I'm not sure what that's about. And now I say finished. It says your selections have been saved. I close this window, come back. I run my sync again. And now that just finished. And now I've got the one that I selected, the longer one with the full HTTPS URL in both places. So that's how MirrorSync does your basic syncing. That's how it does conflict resolution. And by the way, if you don't trust your users to do that conflict resolution screen that I just showed you, you can also have an option so that an administrator gets an email that they can click on and see the same web interface, and the administrator can pick which one should be kept if you don't have faith in your users, which you should really trust your users a little bit. But sometimes
I don't know about that. Yeah. So yeah.
So
no.
Let's talk about the least impressive but most difficult part of MirrorSync to implement, which is deletions. So there's nothing really sexy or exciting about watching me delete a record and sync it, but it's really, really hard to make that work on the back end because we're not running any script triggers. We're not keeping track of what got deleted. All that's happening is that when I delete this record, somehow MirrorSync needs to detect that that record is gone. And it's not, you can't do a find for missing records.
Yeah, you think it'd be easy, but you realize you're searching for the vacuum of space, and it's a hard thing to search for. Yeah.
Now it's easy to imagine in this 3-record database how this would work. You're like, okay, well, it used to have 3, now it has 2. You find the 2 that are missing, you find the one that's missing. But how do you do that efficiently when you've got 500,000 or 5 million records or whatever? And there's a lot of magic that happens in MirrorSync under the hood to efficiently find the record that's missing. So I deleted that one. I run my sync again. And so now the text of that was deleted, and now that's gone off of there. Now that I'm demoing this like out loud, I'm like, this doesn't seem like much, but I mean, magnify this towards, this I've set up. And let me show you which tables we've set up here in the starting point. So in the starting point system, we've set up all of these tables to sync. So we don't really have time on this demo to create a whole new invoice, a project, timesheets, staff, attached expenses, but you could take your laptop out into the field, go on site to a client's location, do an entire huge project with all these timesheet records and all this stuff, hundreds of new records, edited records, deleted records in 15 different tables. You get back to your hotel at night, you plug in, you connect to the Wi-Fi, you run the sync, and all of those hundreds or thousands of changes will be detected and moved up to the server. And if you're working on a team of other people who have also all synced, all of their changes will be pulled down to your local copy. So I'm really kind of just doing a very light demo here, but you can kind of mentally imagine that this is going to work exactly the same when you have it in a much larger system. So yeah, go ahead.
So the sync layout. So people, we have questions here. You folks need to jump in here. Andy has a question. I'll get to that momentarily. So if they're back where you were on that layout list, if the layout isn't in the synced folder, then it's not going to be included. Is that how that works?
So the way this works is that actually that's a really good. I'm not going to answer that question. Instead, I'm going to demo the setup process, and you'll see how that works.
Okay.
But it's a really good question, and I'd rather demo the setup.
Yeah, why don't you demo that? Let me just take a look at Andy's question. On the 360 website, it says that it syncs SQL databases as well. How can I sync from the SQL server side? That's one question. And then how do you do the mapping between SQL tables and FileMaker tables? And you have adapted the Git merge conflict concept. He likes that. So there was two questions and a statement. So
I don't have a demo set up right now for the SQL, but I can describe it.
Yes.
Basically what happens is you set up your sync, and it's the process. I'm about to show you the process for setting up the FileMaker to FileMaker sync. It looks exactly the same for the FileMaker to SQL sync. It's just different tables on the other side of the sync. And you can have different tables with different names, different fields with different names. And just like the FileMaker import dialog, you can basically drag them up and down to line up with each other. So you're going to say these tables on this side go with those tables on that side. And then you do the same thing for all your fields. These fields named this in FileMaker go with those fields named that in SQL. What you can't do, and this is an important limitation to be aware of, you cannot split and merge tables. In other words, if you have 3 tables in SQL that you want to sync with, you need to have 3 tables in FileMaker that you want to sync with. You can't sync one table in SQL and split it out to sync with 4 different tables in FileMaker or vice versa.
Like denormalizing and normalizing, you can't really do that. Which makes
so you need a one-to-one correlation. As long as you have a one-to-one correlation between your tables and fields in FileMaker, then you have the same corresponding tables and fields in SQL. The names can be different, but there just needs to be a one-to-one matchup. MirrorSync makes it very, very easy to just line those up left and right and then sync.
Perfect. I was about to ask you just to clarify. So the names can be different, but as an object that we deal with, there has to be kind of this one-to-one object kind of match that goes on. Okay. Yep. Now, real quick, I want to point out to everyone on this real quick with Jesse is that I specifically. Oh, by the way, now I have my doctor. She's doctor, right? Doctor, and then I would have one of these for Nick, but he won't show up. Doctor FileMaker, right? I love this idea. We used to have these for DevCon. You guys did your doctor things, right, at DevCon?
Yeah.
So anyway, Jesse didn't want to demo this installation. And I told him, I said that I haven't seen the installation in a couple, 2-3 years. And he's like, well, all of them know how this works. I'm like, I want all of you to cheer for Jesse. I need active engagement on Twitch, YouTube, and Discord. That way, when you say stuff, good or bad, I will repeat it so he knows that you care about what he's doing. So Jesse, you may begin now.
I've already got the setup done, but what I just did is I deleted the layout elements off the MirrorSync layout, which is going to make it so that it treats it like it hasn't been set up yet.
Mikey's cheering, Ruben's cheering, they're cheering for you. Go.
Thanks, guys. All right, so here's how the MirrorSync setup process works. I would normally hit new here, and when I hit new, you get a choice. Do you want to sync FileMaker client to FileMaker server, You want to sync FileMaker clients? Oh, that's a use case that I skipped over because nobody does it, but it's actually super cool. You
Ooh.
can sync FileMaker Pro Go directly to SQL, like not FileMaker Pro or Go to FileMaker Server, but you can actually sync like
Oh.
FileMaker Pro to MySQL. I have two clients that I know of that are doing that. It's really fast. It's a lot faster than syncing FileMaker Pro to FileMaker Server. One of them is like a disaster cleanup place, and
Oh.
they send out people where the cell towers have all been knocked down by hurricanes,
Oh.
and they need to
Not
go and like,
crime scene cleanup. Crime scene
yeah, I
cleanup
know,
like
no,
get the
natural
dead
disaster.
bodies. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
That's the second kind, and then the third kind is server to server syncs between FileMaker, between SQL,
And that
between
was
web
our
databases.
enterprise demo that we did. Yeah.
Yep, yep. So this is what it would look like if I
So
created a
that's the
new.
first window right there. That's the first dialogue right there.
Yeah, I'm going to cancel here because instead of creating a new one, I'm just going to edit the existing one that I already have. But I just
Okay.
wanted everyone to see what that looks like. So I'm going to edit this.
Uh-huh.
So here's what. So from this
This
point
would be
forward, this all looks the same as if I had done the new.
but this would be window number 2 after we selected the previous
Yep.
one. Got it. Oh yeah, keep
Yep.
going.
Okay. So the first thing MirrorSync wants to know is what is your hub database? Basically, what is your FileMaker server, your main server where your main database lives? So we tell it MirrorSync and FileMaker server on the same computer. They could potentially be installed on different boxes. You could put MirrorSync on one box, FileMaker server on the other. If you've got a really, high volume sort of situation. If you're inside an internal network and you need network address translation, you can do this so that you can put in your internal and your external addresses. I'm not going to do that.
Mm.
And then you put in the address basically of your server. You put in your FileMaker server username and password, FileMaker server admin username and password, and you pick which database you want to do. I'm going to pick the starting point database. Next thing.
So
And we're going to get to a point here where there's like a 1 or 2 minute delay. So I would love to take some questions when we get to that delay. What I've got here, when you download MirrorSync, this is what you get. Notice our new stuff here, Linux installation instructions. That's new.
Oh, with the cute little cursors, 2 characters too. That's ugly.
Will's going to be so happy when you guys see that. So anyway, here's what you get when you download MirrorSync. You get this file called MirrorSync support. You open that up, and let me move it over to my main screen. And MirrorSync support is where you copy and do all this copying and pasting from. So here, we've already done some of these steps. Step 1 is copy the MirrorSync table from the MirrorSync support into your database. So we've already done that. I would go into my MirrorSync support database, I'd copy this, and then I would paste it into FileMaker starting point. Already done it. Step 2 is you rename the MirrorSync script to MirrorSync 6, and I named this configuration FMSP, so you would rename the script to whatever you named your configuration. Don't worry about this right now. That's because I just intentionally deleted some stuff so the screen would pop up. Then the next step is copy and paste this URL into one of the script steps. I've already done that. And the next thing is copying the MirrorSync layout parts, which I'm going to do right now. Copied and pasted that. And now this is all happy. I get my 4 green check marks. This is actually live. These check marks come in as you do these steps.
Wait. So it's validating that you did it correctly. So if you blow it, it won't be green?
If I had not done this setup beforehand, these green check marks wouldn't appear. And as I do each step, you would see a check. And then as I do the next step, you see a check, and then a check, and then a check. So when you get all green check marks, you're all set to go.
Oh, I like green checks. Makes me happy.
So then this is telling you, this is the part that Jonathan Hogle did before we got on this call. Then you need to create a new layout for each table you want to sync. Let me show you these layouts. They are super, super boring. That's it. That's the MirrorSync layout.
No objects,
there's no objects on it. It's just a bunch of blank layouts.
Okay.
We create these layouts so that MirrorSync has a context to work from, so that when it needs to sync, insert something into the staff layout, it can go to the sync staff layout and it'll be on the right table occurrence to do all the stuff it needs to do. So this is tedious, but it's very simple. You just create a bunch of blank layouts, one per table that you want to sync. You need to have these 3 fields in your solution. You probably already have them. You need a primary key. It can either be a serial number or a UUID. You need a creation time. Yeah. You need a creation timestamp. You need a modification timestamp. And those are the only 3 fields that you need for MirrorSync. They can be named to anything. And it's highly recommended that you see in here that they be set to not empty and unique validation on these fields, and you should change the validation to be always. So that's another thing that Jonathan and I worked on. So the starting point thing now is totally set and ready to go. And Then this is just telling you to create these new blank layouts. So we're already done with this step. This is the hardest part. We're already done with that. And that already comes with FileMaker starting point, ready to go.
We
Then
will
we tell it about,
we will amplify that a little bit later. Amplify
okay.
sounds like, so yeah.
Then we get to the spoke database. This is where you configure the information about the database that you're going to sync with on the offline copy. So first of all, the first question is, do you want each person to log in with their same username and password that they're using for their individual thing? Or do you want to share with the same credentials that we put in the previous screen for everybody so that you don't need a password for each person? I would highly recommend having each person log in with their own credentials. There are some kind of edge cases where you don't want to, you have so many users, you don't want to set up passwords for all of them. And in that case, you might do this and have them all share a password. Down here, this is an interesting point that I don't demo, but by default, this is set to sync with an empty clone or a complete copy of the main file. So what we're going to get is we're going to get a copy of starting point on our offline device. But what you can also do is you can create a small mobile version of your database that doesn't have all of the complexity and table occurrences and weight of your real full solution. And you can create a stripped down version and sync with that.
Okay, go back. Let's talk. I'm going to restate that differently for everyone just so they absorb that. If you want to grab a drink, this one was like operational pauses. It's your chance to grab a cold frosty one and drink. So the idea is that what we're demoing today is a copy of the client copy of starting point is identical to the hosted one. So the idea is that if you built a light, snuggly app, I wouldn't do it for laptop or desktop users probably, but definitely for iPhones especially, or maybe an iPad, I can see that being applicable, right? You could have a lighter chopped down version that would even have higher performance, right? Yep. So it gives, because a lot of the people here are very senior developers in this who are watching this live stream, much better developers than I am personally. They would want this kind of flexibility so they can make the choice, the best choice for their patients, because they're all doctors, right? And so make the best point for the patients. All right, so keep going, Jesse, if we want to.
Okay.
Good.
So this goes to, I think was it Ruben that asked the question about which layouts do we need? Do we need to create the new layouts? What if we don't create the layouts? Do they need to be in a certain folder? The answer to that question is, that's answered on this screen right here. You have two ways of picking which tables you want to sync. You can either say sync selected layouts, and you can check and uncheck whatever you want or don't want. Or you can say sync any layout starting with whatever you want.
Okay.
So by default, it's sync underscore. So any layout that you create that's sync underscore is going to get synced, which is really cool because if you create a new table in your solution and you want that to be, you want your offline users to get that table and be able to sync that table, all you need to do after you finish doing your development is go create a new blank layout and name it sync underscore whatever. And now MirrorSync is going to know to be able to sync that. You don't need to put it in a particular layout folder. You don't need to name it any special thing as long as it starts with whatever prefix you put here. Okay. And then MirrorSync will just automatically detect that and it will include it as part of the sync.
All right, I have a test question for Code to Go. Code to Go, I haven't talked to him in a while. Code to Go. We'll go back to that real quick, Jesse. Go back to that. Why might it be a good idea to create blank layouts for this to access as opposed to targeting other existing layouts in your system? Why? We talk about this in a lot of situations, right? FileMaker is very context sensitive. Peter Geen says triggers are consideration, right? You could step on it, fire triggers. The other one, and I'm just going to, I think Code to Go's on a 90-second delay. But the other answer is that if you put other fields on it, especially containers or summary fields or unstored calculations, FileMaker, before it even allows MirrorSync to talk that layout, is going to probably do a lot of processing and rendering. Could slow down the sync pretty dramatically, I would imagine.
It could, especially summary fields.
Yeah.
But I would say that I would most agree with the person who said script triggers. Yeah, if you have script triggers on your layout, they will get triggered when FileMaker goes to set fields and things like that. And that could switch your layout, and that's just like yanking the blanket out from that's like yanking the carpet out from FileMaker MirrorSync while it's trying to do something. It thinks it's in one layout, and all of a sudden, the script trigger switches it to a totally different context. It's doing something completely different.
Yeah, Peter
So
says he has already stepped on that one before, and he knows by experience. That's how we
that's how
don't
you
go to
learn everything, right?
we don't go to medical school to be doctors. They just give us live patients. We kill a number of them along the way until you get to the point where your patients survive. Then you're a successful developer. I mean, I hate to say,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Trial
how
and
many?
error as applied
Yeah.
to brain surgery, right?
Mm.
So this screen is probably the most interesting screen for anybody who's doing the MirrorSync setup. This is the screen where we actually need to kind of answer some questions that are important. Um, First thing is you can put in an email address here if you want to get email notifications. So MirrorSync can notify you if a sync fails, or if it works with a warning, or if it works, or whatever like that. So feel free to put in your thing here. There's a cool feature here that I don't demo very often, and I'm not actually going to demo it, but I'm just going to talk about it for a second. This advanced notifications feature. If you have an AWS account, you can put in an access key and a secret key here, and then you can report all of these statistics to CloudWatch when syncs run. So you could get,
Paging Jacob
yeah.
Taylor to the bridge. Jacob Taylor, report to the ER. Blue in
So
the
you could
ER.
get all of these things reported to CloudWatch in Virginia every time a sync runs, and you can keep an eye on that, and you can say, notify me any syncs that take longer than 7 minutes, or notify me of any sync where it has more than 10 records that are in a warning thing, or if there's repeatedly warnings, or if there's repeatedly deletions, or anything like that. You can do all this stuff with this advanced notification stuff. So that's something that I tend to gloss over, but I thought your audience would appreciate that. So
No,
um,
we actually, for those of you who are more beginners, we have a wide variety of people. We have people who just picked up FileMaker yesterday, and we have people who are probably at your level, Jesse Barnum. They just don't know
mhm,
about your product, right? We're
mhm,
talking like Chris Moyer types of the world, right? Like,
yeah. So I'm trying to kind of like get into some of the nooks and crannies that I normally might skip over here.
okay, cool.
Um, so this time zone considerations, the
Mhm.
question here about time zones is it's not a question, it's not asking you, are your offline syncing users in different time zones? That's fine. MirrorSync handles that automatically. What MirrorSync can't handle automatically is if the users who connect directly to FileMaker server as a guest to FileMaker server are potentially in a different time zone than where FileMaker server itself is running. So if you have an AWS server in Virginia, which my test server here is in Virginia,
Mm.
if you have an AWS server in Virginia and you have people connecting to it from California, all of their timestamps are going to be 3 hours behind. And MirrorSync can't know that because FileMaker server doesn't store time zone information. So to MirrorSync, it looks like all those records were modified 3 hours ago. So if you have people connecting from a different time zone, then in the documentation, we tell you a trick you can do to create a host modification timestamp so that your modification timestamps will all be in the same time zone as the server instead of a different time zone.
Mm.
Jonathan's already done that for starting point, so we're all set to go for starting point.
Okay, cool. All right.
Um,
All right,
Down
next.
here, we get into sync direction. You can sync. This is bidirectional. Changes on the iPads go to the server, change on the server, go to the iPad or the phone, and vice
However,
versa. You
however,
can set it to be one way from hub
mm,
to spoke. If you just want to carry a read-only copy of your FileMaker data with you, you can do it one way from spoke to hub. If you're doing like a data collection thing, you're going out and doing field inspections and you don't need to see everybody else's inspections. You just want to push your stuff up to the server. You can do that. And then the last thing I'll point out is if you uncheck this box right here, same settings for all tables, you get that same question about the sync direction, but you can customize it individually per table. So you could be like, and I'm on my laptop screen, so it's small, but you could say accounts go this way, terms go that way, these accounts go this way, calendar goes that way. So you can do all of these things individually per table if you uncheck this same setting for all tables.
that's bad. I love that. I'm going to answer a question real quick. Code to go asked a question. He goes, wow, the reporting feature, I think he was talking about Amazon, was great. He did ask a question. Blank layouts automatically give you access to all the fields in the table. The answer for that is generally yes. And obviously in Jesse's case, it's yes. However, just keep in mind, if you go to a blank, you go to a layout, and a field isn't there and you run, for example, an insert command, there's an insert script step, that is dependent upon the object being physically on the layout, right? So
Right. We use set field instead of
I'm sure you
insert,
use
so
it
that's
set
not an
field,
issue.
set variable, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those don't need, nothing needs to be on the layout for that.
Who asked that question?
That was code to go, but he's a very senior person. He's a very senior developer.
No, it's a good question because it brings me to my next point right here. Code to go, this is for you. On this field selection thing, if I say sync all fields in the table, that's when it doesn't matter what fields are on the table if you pick this option. It could be blank, it could have a ton of fields on it, it could have fields from a bunch of different tables. We don't really care what fields are on it, but you can also pick over here, sync only fields in the layout. And in that case, let's say you've got 500 fields in this layout, but only 6 of them need to sync. In that case, you would create your layout, but instead of leaving it blank, you would drop those 6 fields onto it that you want, and then you would come into this screen and you would change this choice from sync all fields to sync only fields that are on the layout. So there are some cases where you would want to deliberately put specific fields on the layout, and that's if you want to pick this option to sync only the fields.
Yeah, and it seems to me that would be back where you're building possibly a lighter weight application. I mean, if you start cutting down on data you're moving, it's because you have a performance issue and you need to try to speed.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yep. I did skip over this thing right here, primary key matching. This is important to understand. You've got some databases are serial numbers and some databases are UUID. MirrorSync supports both. If you have serial numbers, you want to pick this MirrorSync managed option. If you have UUIDs, you pick developer managed. Developer managed are really straightforward. They're called developer managed because the developer is responsible for making sure that they are different across all devices, which a UUID, of course, is going to be different across all devices. So MirrorSync just simply takes the ID from one table and just writes it unmodified to the other table, and everybody has the same IDs on every device. But then there's this MirrorSync managed option, which is what you need if you're using serial numbers. In that case, if you create a new record on your laptop and your laptop assigns it serial number 50, and you sync it up to the server, but the server already has 1 through 500, it's going to assign record 501. It's going to assign 501 as your next serial number. MirrorSync will keep track of that, and it'll know from now on, anytime that you change record 50 on your laptop, MirrorSync knows it needs to go and modify record 501 on the server. So your primary keys will actually not match between your devices and the server if you pick MirrorSync Manage, but MirrorSync will take care of that. It'll make sure that the right records get modified, and it will rewrite your foreign keys so that if you had other tables that had 50 in their foreign key, when they get written to the server, that foreign key will get rewritten as 501. So all your relationships stay intact when you go back and forth. And that's why it's called MirrorSync Managed, because MirrorSync is taking care of that.
Yeah. The rub with that is that the MirrorSync Managed, Jesse and I've very long time trying to get to the point where I could really support Jesse, because it's like dealing with Jesse is like dealing with Nick to a degree. They want advanced that's not the best for brand new trained people. MirrorSync Managed takes a training application, and it's like putting a frog in a blender and setting it on high speed. It just shreds and makes it. His thing works fine, but it will confuse the users. The users will, because they'll have record 50 over here, but on the server, it becomes 501. In an example, it makes a mess. And so what we have done in Starting Point, and we will get this more momentarily, but just so everyone understands is, FM Starting Point Lite uses serial numbers, so I can train people, and I am continuing to rip stuff out of Starting Point Lite and simplify it. That was ongoing even today. I'm investing a lot of my personal money into that time. Jesse's really, for drag and drop implementation of MirrorSync, needs to have UUID. So in Starting Point Standard and Enhanced, those are all UUIDs. So what we're going to do is allow it. We'll get this more in a little bit, but we're going to allow MirrorSync to work with FM Starting Point by default with very little intervention is the idea. So you can set up sync really easily. It just won't do it with the light version. You'll have to have at least the standard version, which is free. Standard version is free. It's not really a free thing. It's mostly, I need a training tool that doesn't cause people's heads to explode.
So getting to the field, I already demoed this. You guys saw how the field MirrorSync merged those fields. When I changed the phone number and the website on 2 different records, MirrorSync merged those changes together. I don't know why you'd want to, but we've had people ask us, so we support it. If you don't want that, you can say don't merge. And then MirrorSync will just, anytime that you change the same record, even if it's different fields, MirrorSync will just pop up that conflict resolution thing and say, pick what you want. So you can turn that on or off.
So Andy has a question here, right?
Yeah.
It's relevant right here. I'm going to interrupt. Wait, so different data sources have different IDs, question mark. And then there's a follow-on questions here.
Yeah, so this can... So
let me ask the rest of his questions so you understand it. So when I tell someone in Australia, for example, to go to record 20, he has no idea where he actually has to go.
My next screen, I think, is the one that's going to take 2 or 3 minutes to finish. So I'm going to answer that question while I wait for the next screen because
Okay, good.
it's a little bit longer explanation. The last thing I've got in this screen before I leave is that conflict resolution. You guys all saw what user picks look like. It means that when I have a conflict, I, the user, will pick which one should win the conflict. I can also just say most recent change wins. In that case, your user will never get asked about a conflict. Whichever record was modified the last by the clock is going to be the one that wins. That's a good one if you very rarely run into conflicts and if it's not that important.
Is that timestamp clock? The clock on that's the timestamp on the record, or
it's the timestamp on the? No, good question. It's not the timestamp of who syncs last.
Yes,
it's who changed the record last.
Got it. So it's a
time. And it's time zone smart. So if you changed it in San Francisco at 12:30,
I'm clapping
Eastern. You changed it Eastern time at 1 o'clock. The one that happened at 10:30 really came after the one at 1 p.m. So it's time zone smart, and it'll go by whoever actually changed it last.
Yep.
Hub always wins is stupid. Don't use that. I only did that because somebody got mad at me if I didn't have it, so I put it in there. But basically, that would mean that whatever version is on the server always trumps whatever is on somebody's laptop or iPad or iPhone.
I could see that being remotely interesting, right? So that's fine.
Yeah, if you really, really, really don't trust your users, maybe that's the
one. Well, and there was a big conversation I'm seeing on Discord, and they have all voted that users suck and they don't trust them. So there you
go. All right, so I'm swimming upstream here.
You are
users
a little
are
bit
smart.
Yeah.
And then the last one we already talked about, that email administrator thing. It's the same thing as user picks. It's just that the administrator is the one who resolves it instead of the user. Okay. So I'm going to go to my next screen. This is the one where it might take a little while. So let me come back and talk about the concept of serial number IDs. So if you've got 10 copies of your database sitting out there, and plus you've got the server, and you're using serial numbers, and the server has records 1 through 100. And let's just say that everybody has the same 100 records. Everybody just made a fresh copy, so everybody's IDs are all the same. And now Richard creates a new record. He creates record 101. And he syncs it to the server, and the server gets it, and it's 101 on the server too. Great. Richard's 101 is the same as the server's 101. So far, we're all good. But now Jesse also creates a new record. I'm going to get record 101 as well because I don't know. My copy doesn't know that Richard created 101. So now I've got 101. When I sync, I certainly don't want to overwrite Richard's 101 with my 101. So the way MirrorSync deals with that is it lets the server assign the next serial number, which is according to the server is going to be 102. And now MirrorSync will know Jesse's 101 is actually the server's 102. Richard's 101 is the server's 101. If Margaret creates a new record, her record 103 is going to be, or her 101 is going to be the server's 103. And MirrorSync takes care of all of that under the hood. So the users don't need to worry about that or think about that. But it does create confusion. If I call Richard, I'm like, hey, Richard, can you take a look at record 101 with me? It's messed up.
Yep.
He's like, sure is messed up. You're looking at the whole wrong thing. So the problem is that this is not a MirrorSync issue. This is just a database design issue.
Yeah.
It isn't really a great principle to have your primary key also be a user visible value that users can see and maybe potentially change and care about, like a check number, a PO number, a work order number, an invoice number. Those things ideally should not also do double duty as the primary key in your database, because primary keys should ideally, from a computer science standpoint, be a synthetic, meaningless value that users don't care at all about. It's just a reference code. And so that's the problem that you have with serial numbers, is that
can you walk walk through the solution on that. Let's just forget UUID.
Yeah.
Well, even if you use UUID, let's say you use UUID, but then you still need a work order number. So if someone creates one out in the field, is
the solution? The solution's really simple. Have 2 fields. So basically you want to have a primary key field. Again, it doesn't matter if that's an ID number, or if it doesn't matter if it's a serial number or if it's UUID, as long as you have a separate field that's called your work order number, your customer number, your invoice number, your purchase order number, your check number, your reference add code, whatever that thing is. If it's something that a user is going to be able to see and potentially want to change or want to have a conversation with somebody about this particular record, it should be a separate field than the primary key. As long as you've got 2 separate fields, one for your primary key and one for the user visible number, it doesn't matter if your primary key is a UUID or a serial number.
Yeah, cool.
Yep.
All right, cool. That's code to go. Who's talking about CDML? Yeah, the DAPI is a much better performance thing. Code to go says Hub always wins is useful if you want to sync a bunch of laptops and iPads at the start of the day before handing them out to users, and then turn it back to user picks for the day's work.
Oh, interesting. I don't.
It's like an initial sync though. Where he's talking
The
about.
initial sync will always be a copy of the server. The
Yeah.
initial sync is always going to contain whatever the server contains. Um, so you don't need to worry about the initial sync. The conflict resolution strategy will only come up in the case where the user in the field has also modified a record that somebody on the server has modified. So that I don't think that would be a problem as far as giving a copy of a copy of something to a user in the field.
Okay.
And now, any other questions before I keep going?
No, Ken is getting to what I really wanted to get to, and you were answering it from the professory relational answer kind of thing. But let's dumb down the training to like Richard's training, right? So Ken says, back to this sync and having two work orders that because two laptops create new records, and even if the primary key is not an issue because it's a UID under the hood, they both have to create an invoice or a work order. They both could create even a user-facing number that's a duplicate.
Yes.
And so that's what he's asking about. So
that's a good question. And as soon as this progress bar finishes, I'm going to answer your question. Actually, I can talk about it while I'm waiting for the progress bar. Do you see this column here, write back value?
Okay.
MirrorSync automatically just detected those. The write back value is the answer to your question. So let's just say that you've got invoices. So we're syncing our invoice table. So our primary key is ID invoice, and I happen to know that that's a UUID. So obviously we don't want to show a UUID as our invoice number.
No, that confuses people. So yeah.
Yeah, but then we've got this other thing here in the write back column, and I've got stuff covering this up on my screen, but you guys can see this column, right?
Yep, we can see that.
Can see my screen here. Okay.
Yeah, we can see that column.
So this ID invoice display is an actual incrementing serial number.
Okay.
And the column, the header at the top of the column, it says write back value. So what does write back value means? What that means is that when I create my invoice, and my next invoice is 101, is 102, it's 101, because we all created a record 101, and I sync that to the server, and the server says, well, for me, my next invoice number is 102. So the server is going to store 102 in the ID invoice display field. And then because this is selected as the write back field, MirrorSync will write that back to the spoke. And what was 101 for me will now, once I've synced that record, it will change to 102. So there's no way in real time when I create that record to magically somehow know that Richard's already created 101. I'll temporarily get a wrong value or a blank value. Right. But then after I run my first sync, then I'll get my permanent correct value as it was assigned on the server. Yes.
And so here's the workflow problem with that, Ken. Ken is a hot air balloon. Ken, he's a big contributor here. We appreciate him. The workflow problem is that if your user is out in the field and they create a invoice and they print and give the invoice to the customer and then they sync, you've got foobar. You've got frog in a blender.
Yes.
It's not good.
Yes.
My suggestion in a situation like that is some variation of when you create an invoice for someone, if it's a hot air balloon Ken or Ken Art, it might say KA and then the invoice number. And so
KA 101.
Or what? Yeah.
And then I would be JB 101 and you'd be RC 101.
Right. And so and if you don't want to use someone's initials, then give them a little code in the staff file, whatever, in a dash, so you know that the complete invoice number or the work order, whatever number that could potentially conflict, is always going to be different because that client on that laptop is a different individual, right? Does that make sense? That's the way you have to solve that.
Yep.
It's a great question. It's an absolute great question. If the customer never sees the paperwork before, or a printout or a PDF or anything before you sync it, it's not a problem. But if you give them an invoice, they're going to come back and say, hey, I got a question about this invoice. If that invoice number doesn't match anymore because you have this write back thing, go in there and change it. You got, once again, frog in a blender. No bueno.
Right.
So.
Yep. Yep. But that's the purpose of that write back column, is so that it lets you create a new record, sync it to the server, and then you get a continuous sequence that's unique for everybody of your next work order number, your next check number, your next invoice number. And like to Richard's point, it only works, that's only an effective solution after you've run the first sync for the record. So when you first, in between when you create the first record and when you sync it, you're not going to have a valid value there. You can use an auto-entered calc. What I like to do personally on my solutions is I use an auto-entered calc that looks at the multi-user state and assigns a blank value if they're offline, so that the invoice number will be blank, and then it gets filled in. That's better than having a wrong value that gets replaced with a right value.
I agree with that.
I'd rather have a blank value that gets replaced with a right value.
Yeah, people say, I have this invoice from this date, but there's no invoice number on it. Your database guy sucks. Well, at least you'd understand what happened. It didn't change.
And if anybody wants to read more about this, if you go to the MirrorSync documentation, in the advanced documentation section, we have some calcs that you can copy and paste that will make it so that it'll be empty until it gets synced. So you can just look that up.
We're doing good. I don't have a hard stop. We're going to keep going until Jesse is done because we want this to be a complete recording. But I think this level of engagement, these questions and stuff, this is important. I got engineers right now deploying MirrorSync to customers right now today doing this. So we eat this dog food.
This is the relationship graph thing, and MirrorSync automatically detects this. It reads your relationship graph. It finds all the cases where the primary key that you've told MirrorSync is the primary key relates to some field in some other table, and then it will detect that automatically. It's important for MirrorSync to know about your foreign keys because that helps MirrorSync do syncs in the right order, so that tables that are parents will sync before tables that are children, and fields that are foreign keys will sync before fields that are not foreign keys. So there's really nothing for me to do in the screen other than just look at it. Then we get this graphical preview here that just kind of shows us graphically, and it's intentionally mocked up to look like the FileMaker relationship graph so that you can get an idea of what's connecting to what. This is a pretty messy one, so I have to spend a lot of time untangling it. But the point is that you can just take a look at this and you can make sure that the relationships seem like they were detected correctly. This is the last screen in the setup process. The only time that you would use this button right here, select additional databases, is if you had a multi-file solution. MirrorSync works really well with single file solutions, which starting point is a single file solution. If it were a multi-file solution, you would pick the select additional databases, and then you would pick what your additional databases are here. And then when users download a copy from MirrorSync, it would automatically bundle up all of these auxiliary databases with your main database.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about that too much. So what is it about updating the database and if they don't have a copy at all? Can you talk about that?
So what I'm going to demo right now is the download process.
Okay, let's do that, yeah. Because what if Ken makes a change to the master file on the server and then everyone doesn't have the current one anymore? What happens? All that stuff.
All right, let's do it. So your changes have been saved. To distribute offline copies to your users, use the download database button. You can also manually download copies using the FileMaker server admin. So I'm going to click download database. Do you want to download the database now, generate a download link that can be sent to users, or disable a previous download link? I want to create a link. Download would just download it to my computer, which might be helpful for me to test with, but it's not helping my users at all. Creating a link is a much more effective way to distribute this solution. I want to send a full copy, and I want to run the initial sync on the client. If I have time, I'll come back and demo this combination of radio buttons. But I'm going to start off with this, which is the simplest approach. So I'm going to click OK here. The download URL has been copied to your clipboard. You can now use the revoke feature. I'm going to come over to my notes. I'm going to paste that in for later so I don't lose track of it. And I'm going to come back here. I'm going to open up my browser. So you email this URL to your users. The URL is long and it looks basically like this. It's a URL pointing to MirrorSync, DB download. We want a client-side initial sync, and then it's just got a long UUID here as a code so that nobody can guess what your download URL is and get copies of your database. So you send this to your users. Your users put this in the browser. It downloads a file. And there is a copy of the starting point database that I just downloaded from the server. This might you might not realize all the crap that goes on behind the scenes for that download URL to do what it just did, but it's pretty cool.
That's a lot of, that's a lot of
There's a lot of code that lives behind that download URL. What
and to make it work on Windows and make it work on Mac. I mean,
and Linux. Yeah. What it just did is it used the admin API to create a temporary schedule.
Oh, you're kidding me.
A temporary backup schedule. It then triggered.
This is the okay. Hey, all the people in Discord. This is a hack. It's a hack. This is a hack.
Because the admin API doesn't give you any way.
It's an abomination.
It doesn't give you any way to just back up an arbitrary file. So the only way that I could figure out to do it was to create a temporary
Taylor says, "Hell yeah,
schedule.
it's a hack." Yeah, I mean it works. It works. I mean, it's not really a hack if you don't see the sausage making in the inside.
Yeah, no, there's a really ugly sausage dude down there. He's like some homunculus with a grinder, just like, oh, you're gonna get your file.
Oh my God. Yeah. So you create a schedule, you run the schedule, it makes a backup copy, then you delete the schedule. Wow.
Yep. Then we gzip that backup so that it's 50% the size. We send it to you with a gzip content encoding, and the browser on iPad or Safari or whatever will automatically gzip that. So you're getting the benefits of compression as well, but you don't have to decompress it like you would a zip file because gzip gets decompressed on the fly. So there's a lot of stuff that happens under the hood here, but from the user standpoint, all they know is they put the URL in, they get the file. We open up our file. And here is our download copy. Our offline copy. And this is still, so I'm back to where I was when I started this demo. I've got my hosted copy and I double check. So I know this is my hosted copy because my save a copy as is disabled. I know this is my local copy because my save a copy as is enabled. I'm going to come back into my contacts. I'm going to run my initial sync. It comes up for the very first time asking me what's the name of your device. That's just so that the admin thing can see, so we can have a list of it. I'm going to put in my password for my account. And now you'll see, now you get to see what the initial sync looks like.
Which account was that? That account password you just put in?
MirrorSync. I created a MirrorSync account, but I created that just in my copy, but I didn't change your copy on the hosted server.
Okay. Yeah, we still have to cover that real quick.
Yep. So you can see now it's going through every table and it's looking in the last 24 hours to see what's changed about this file from the server. Obviously, nothing has changed. I think the audit log gets changed whenever we do anything in the file. So we added one new audit log record, and now that's done. And now we're just doing incremental syncs. And now it looks very much like it did when I started off this demo, 1.94 seconds. So you can see the incremental syncs are really, really fast. This is syncing, approximately 30 tables or so. I know I'm getting short on time, but there's a really cool feature that I think addresses the question that you were just asking me.
Take the time. This is, yeah.
So the question was, what if you make programming changes on your FileMaker database?
Yes.
And you want those users to get the programming changes?
Yes.
So I am going to make a programming change right now on my hosted file.
Okay.
I'm going to go to my
mouse
opening
layouts.
window.
Mouse.
I'll go to home, contacts. Yeah. So let's say, notice that I've been running this script over and over from the scripts menu.
Yeah.
I thought, it'd be really nice if we had a button here for users that they could just click a sync thing. So I'm going to pick out a button on my thing. So I'm going to go to layout mode. I'm going to steal one of these nice looking buttons that you guys did because I'm too lazy to make nice buttons. I'm going to modify our icon here. I think there's a nice little sync icon down at the bottom. Just to make it a little bit nicer, I'm going to hide this button unless you're offline. So hide this button. Multi-user status 2 means that this is a hosted file. So if I go into browse mode, I don't see that button, but it's there and you'll see it when you're not hosted.
I don't think I've ever used the multi-state get function, but that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. So this hopefully will show up when I'm working offline. So now I've made a programming change. In my offline copy, that button is not there. If I go into layout mode, I don't see that button.
Okay.
I'm going to run another sync and nothing special is going to happen.
Okay.
This is not the exciting part of the demo. This is just me showing there's nothing up my sleeve.
So it didn't auto push your edits.
Correct. There's one more step to do. So I don't want users to get my programming changes when I'm in the middle of working on the database.
Correct.
I only want them to get it when I'm done with all of my changes.
Yes. Okay.
So now that I'm done with all my changes, now I go into my MirrorSync table, and there's a calc field here called database version. And I can change this to anything. It doesn't have to be a number. It could be any word I want. As long as it's anything other than the string 1.17, it will trigger a download. So I'm going to call this version 2. Okay. Now I'm going to come back in. I'm going to run another sync. Sync's going to finish. Nothing exciting so far. But now, after the successful sync, there's a new database version available named 2. Would you like to replace your current offline with this version? I could hit not yet if I'm in a hurry and I don't feel like doing it right now, and I'm just like servicing customers and I don't want to stop and take a break from what I'm doing. Or I hit OK. And when I hit OK, this loader screen pops up. We do the same thing. And now, here's my new version of the database. And notice now I'm offline. I get my little syncy button. Actually, you know what? I don't even think I attached that button to anything. I forgot.
I wasn't going to embarrass you, but it doesn't do anything yet. So
I skipped that. I overlooked that part. But let's pretend that I had attached that to the sync button. So this button it does something totally different right now. So that button would now be in there. So that's how you distribute new versions. I could have done a whole lot more than just adding a button. I could have added new layouts, new fields, tons of new scripts. Remember, if I had added new tables, I just need to create a new blank layout for each of the tables that I added, and that's all I need to do. If I add new fields, they get picked up automatically. There's no work that needs to be done at all for new fields.
Okay, so we have questions, and we're not done yet. We're going to take this to when we're done. We're done. If you folks want to leave early, that's fine. This is being recorded. Andy asked a question.
Can I jump in one sec before we get to questions?
Okay.
And this will be a good thing for while we're doing questions. How can I send you a link? Can I go into Zoom and do a Zoom chat?
Yeah, sure. Send me a link here. I could probably.
Okay, so I'm going to send you a chat in Zoom.
Okay.
And it's the download URL that I just got. So if you want to paste this on Discord, anybody who wants to is welcome. While we're doing Q&A, anybody who wants to download their own copy and run their own sync.
Let's see, where's Discord?
I set myself up with 1,000 device license. So unless we got 1,000 people, we shouldn't hit any licensing problems.
We shouldn't have it. I'm going to paste it into Discord. So Andy has a question. Andy asked a question. Andy's pretty sharp. Oh, it wants a username and password.
Oh, sorry. The username and password is MirrorSync, capital M, capital S.
That's the username, or that's the username and password?
Both. I'm super security conscious.
Okay, so it's
the word MirrorSync with a capital M, capital S, all one word, no spaces.
And that's both the username and the password. Okay.
Yep. Great. Oh, and before anybody starts to download it, I'm going to fix that. I'm going to fix that button.
You're going to fix that button. So Andy had a question, and I want to make sure Andy was paying attention. So Andy, we're talking about layout edits kind of thing, right? That's what you're saying on that. Yeah, layout edits. Okay, so Andy says, what if two people are, I think I could probably answer this, but two people are editing the FileMaker file at the same time on the server, and what do you say is if no change in file 1 and one change in the same field in file 2, basically people don't get the new version until you change that version in the calculation, right?
Yeah, until you change that version and commit your changes to the database, nobody's going to be prompted.
So you can have 10 developers beating on a solution, making it better, assuming they weren't running into each other.
Yes.
No one would get the new one until you change that string.
Yes, until somebody went in and changed that string.
Okay. Both changes are local. Okay, he's talking about developers using local versions, right? This is more of a 360 deploy conversation, right?
Yeah. 360 deploy, which was also, by the way, updated for Linux, is a really, and also we made it a lot cheaper. We improved the licensing terms a lot for 360
So
deploy.
backup. So let's talk about this. So I'm going to handle one question. It's very simple. One person on YouTube asked a question. Do I have to have FileMaker server? He didn't phrase it this way, but do I have to have FileMaker server to run MirrorSync?
Yes.
I want to sync between Pro and Go, and I don't want to buy a server. I'm assuming he didn't say this, but I'm assuming that's the.
We can't help you.
Can't help you. Yeah. So.
Yeah. You would need to have some server to sync to. Now, as I had mentioned earlier in the demo, you can sync with things other than FileMaker server, but they have to be a server product. So you could sync from FileMaker to SQL. You can FileMaker Pro to to Oracle, something like that. But you can't sync one copy of FileMaker Pro to another copy of FileMaker Pro go directly. It has to go through either FileMaker Server, MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server, something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of tech and server that we need access to.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about this real quick. So, let's talk about starting point real quick. We have at least two major things to talk about. One, I want to talk about what we did at starting point, what people can get, what they're getting right here. And then I want to talk about deploy, because that's a sync, but it's kind of a different kind of sync strategy. I'm using deploy too. Listen, I use almost all of Jesse's products, one way or the other. Really good stuff. It's like someone just did a sync.
Yeah, I see Bob Smith.
So it should do containers, right? It'll sync containers.
Yeah, sync containers just fine.
Okay, make your window bigger.
Here's a tip for containers, by the way. A tip on containers is that for the best possible speed in MirrorSync, put containers in their own separate table. You don't need to do that. It'll work fine if they're in the same table as everything else. But here's the problem. If you've got 30 containers plus 30 text fields, and you modify one of those text fields, MirrorSync is going to sync all 30 text fields and all 30 container fields, even though all you change is one text field. By putting those container fields in their own separate tables, you make it so that if you modify one of those text fields, it's going to sync all 30 text fields, but not the container fields. And the container fields are always going to be bigger and take longer. So that's just a speed tip there.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about what we did with starting point. So one of the things that we've always wanted to do with this free CRM is to make it fundamentally compatible with as many things as possible. Now, it's not really easy to do that with like QuickBooks, because QuickBooks, people say, I want to do QuickBooks, and they realize how invasive QuickBooks is and all the shenanigans that goes on with it. It's never a simple implementation, mostly because the people who do it don't realize there's all these rules that their accounting is going to have to follow. However, MirrorSync is sufficiently simple that we can fundamentally support it and build it and use it with starting point. So what we are going to do, I'm going to share my screen briefly. I'm going to override yours, Jesse. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the FM starting point website, and I'm going to come over here. And what you'll see is that there are these other, I say versions right here. So the light version, I'm not going to support the MirrorSync on. That's a training tool, and I continue to make it simpler. You can roll out MirrorSync with it. There's nothing wrong, but it's not pre-built for you. Say it's because if you're a talented developer, you need to know you know what you're doing. You can build the sync in a straight copy starting point in like an hour and a half, right? It's not that much work. We're building it in here automatically. We built it in the US English standard version. So remember, there's 4 languages, right? It's just crazy stuff, right? So all of you, never mind the Dutch and German and all that other stuff. I've got a lot of arguments just between people who speak English, right? There's the Queen's English, there's American English, there's Australian English with koala bears and kangaroos and like that, and then the UK, which decided they were Brexiting themselves or whatever. So, and everyone doesn't like it when you don't do it their way. So we tweak all these versions of starting point. And so when you go to download a copy of starting point, you get an email and it has links to all this stuff. We're going to patch and build this in there for you over the next week or so. So these are all in there. However, today we posted a link right now of a copy of starting point. And when we send the video out on Saturday, this video recording, we're going to attach to it a link so you can download US English Standard Edition, and it'll have all this 360Works built in. So, because Jesse's not going to allow this one the one that you're getting right now to live on super for long, because it's got links to his MirrorSync stuff in it. Does that make sense? So you can play with it for now, but in fact, I'm going to stop sharing. If you want to go back to your screen, share yours real quick, Jesse, see if we have more entries in it. People.
All right.
Stuff.
Yep. Jam the rocket, man.
All right. And you can click on that. I don't know if they put any pictures in there, any of that stuff. Once again,
hey, we got some hot air balloons.
There we go. Right on.
With Wile E. Coyote, if you look really closely.
They're very nicely done. All right. So, so real quick. So then let's talk about. So here's the situation. People say, well, I could MirrorSync. So then my customers could be using it and I could be developing it. And then I have a vertical market solution and I have 10 customers. So then I want all those 10 customers to get the latest version of my GWiz stuff, right? And so MirrorSync isn't really designed for pushing out. I mean, what you saw in terms of updating the solution, there's a master file, or a couple master files on the server. You update those files, you change the text string, and then people will download and get a fresh one. However, if you're a developer and you're trying to support multiple customers, or you have a customer in a faraway country and you want to use an offline version, like we have a customer in Singapore, it's just impossible for us to do live work on this server. I prefer to do live work on a server. There's a lot of benefits to that. However, if the server's too far away or the work is too invasive, it's painful. And so we have an offline copy of FileMaker. We need an easy way to push up that offline copy and push it live to the customer. Jesse Barnum, what do we use for that?
That would be 360 Deploy. And 360 Deploy is a very easy to use tool, so that instead of developing live on your server, which is really how a lot of people have done it for a really long time, but there's a lot of good reasons not to do that. Instead of developing live on your server, you develop on a dev copy of the database. It might be hosted on a server, which is how we do it at 360.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, because of backups and stuff. You want the master file to be on the server, so it's backed up, right?
But it could be either way. You could develop offline on your own copy in your laptop and use 360 Deploy. You can also develop on a hosted FileMaker server and use 360 Deploy. Either way, you've got a dev copy somewhere, and you've got a prod copy somewhere, and you want to take all the changes you made in your dev copy and push them up to your prod copy, and you want it to be done with the least amount of effort possible. And that's what 360 Deploy is designed to do.
Okay, so we're going to go and talk about that briefly here, but can you show these records before we disengage here? We got a couple more records on screen here.
Yeah, you got John Doe here.
Oh, Claris. I would vote for Claris for president. She would be good president. Kermit. All right, with an AK-47. All right. Yeah. So much for Second Amendment shenanigans. We have frogs with guns and Roadrunner. All right, so can you go to your website and show us, if we want to buy MirrorSync, where do we buy it? And then I also want to ask everyone there who's watching the show, are you interested in having Jesse come back and do a demo on Deploy? It's what he just talked about. You're working on a solution. You want to roll it out to your customers. My company uses this with a handful of customers. Are any of you, it's the little buzz box thing. You have to buzz if you want that topic. Would you like to come back and see that topic covered? Basically, everyone here wants to see you do Deploy, although not this second. But this is MirrorSync. So at the top of the screen, these are his main products, right? So there's
these are the featured products. We've got a lot more than that, but I'm going to take you to the pricing page here. Price or buy.
Yep.
New to MirrorSync, get a license key. One really nice thing about MirrorSync is that, so here's the pricing page. These are all kind of examples of ways you could set it up. Nice thing about MirrorSync is that it comes for free with one device. It's not a limit. It's not a trial. It's not a demo. It has full functionality. So if all you wanted to do was just have MirrorSync for the owner of the company, or for yourself, or for one traveling salesperson or whatever.
And it syncs to the one copy on the server to one remote user.
So you can sync FileMaker server to one device, either an iPad, an iPhone, or a laptop, totally for free.
There you go.
And you're welcome to do it that way. If you want, you don't pay us anything until you want to start adding more devices. When you want to add more devices, you come to here, you click Add Devices. And so one device already comes with it. If you had 10 people that you wanted to do, you've already got one, you add 9 more. Your price for 10 or more devices is $70 per device. But you're only buying 9 because you've already got one.
Right.
So your price is $70 per device. So it's $630 basically to have a total of 10.
Okay. And is that per year? What does that cost?
That's a one-time cost.
Really?
And that's a one-time cost. And then there's a 25% per year optional maintenance program to stay current with new versions.
I highly recommend you pay that bill. So that's a pretty good price, because 10 people on FileMaker server is about $1,800, just the license for the Claris, maybe $1,650 or something like that, right? So the base copy for 10 people on FileMaker server, about $1,600. An additional $630 gives you offline syncing.
Yes.
So then you have really great flexibility.
If you have a very large solution, if you have 1,000 or more devices, talk to us. We have special pricing when you get up to about 1,000 devices. We have actually more customers than you might think that have that unlimited device, the 1,000 device bundle. So a lot of people have incorporated MirrorSync into vertical market solutions that they're using. And so there are prices even that go even lower than this $40 per device.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's basically how the pricing works. If you were doing a server to server sync, the pricing is
The
different.
enterprise
Instead of,
stuff. I love the enterprise stuff.
in that case, you would come here and add configuration and you would pick, I want to sync FileMaker server with, let's just say, a non-FileMaker SQL database. In that case, the price is $1,800 per configuration. A configuration is essentially a pair of servers. So if you wanted to sync FileMaker server with two MySQL databases, you would come here and you would pick
Not
two.
database servers.
Database servers, right. The FileMaker to FileMaker is $1,600. So if you had 4 servers that you wanted, that's 3 pairs, hub to A, hub to B, hub to C. So you would come in here for 3 at $1,600 each. So you'd be at $4,800 to sync those 4 servers.
Yeah.
So that's how the pricing works. It's a little different for the server to server than for the client to server, but now you know where to go to if you need. You do add configurations for server to server, add devices for client to server.
Code to Go wants to know if Postgres SQL is supported as part of your SQL Syncy stuff.
Yes, that's out of the box. We have kind of like official support for MySQL, SQL Server, Oracle, Redshift, DynamoDB, and Salesforce. And I even touched on FileMaker Server to Salesforce, but that works really, really well. We also support any driver with a JDBC, any database with a JDBC driver. So all of a sudden, that's 1,000 more databases. That's Postgres, Firebird, MariaDB, Aurora. Actually, Aurora would just be covered under the MySQL.
What about
HSQLDB?
No SQL?
Sorry?
No SQL?
No SQL is not going to work with the JDBC. So Dynamo is a NoSQL database, but we had to do special work to make that work. So if you had a NoSQL database that you wanted to use, we could do a custom implementation for you for that NoSQL database. Yeah.
Well, this blows my mind. And for all of you who are FileMaker doctors out there, and which is pretty much everyone here, this is an essential. It's like a cardiac kit kind of thing. The skills, this is the stuff you have to be able to do with your customer. I think the deploy is another good one. I would love to see Jesse come back and talk about that. We can schedule that out. But a lot of people buzzed and said they would love to see deploy. So
okay, we'll put that on the schedule.
Yeah.
There's one last thing that I'm going to show. I promise to keep it short. I'm actually skipping a whole bunch of steps that I was planning on doing. I just want to do a quick demo of the MirrorSync Linux installer. What I just did is I logged into my Linux box. I downloaded MirrorSync from this URL. I'm going to unzip that, go into the folder. There's a Linux installer that you should not skip. This Linux installer installation instructions. There are actually important steps in that. But then at the end of that, you just run the Linux installer, and there's your there's your 80s hacked video game logo thing.
Oh my God.
This just comes up and it's just a simple question and answer thing. Linux 1, you put in the host name. You pretty much, I'm just going to pick defaults for almost all of these things. That's the Linux installation process right there.
Payless Nike says, I'd love to see a copy of deploy or a demo of deploy. We'll definitely put that on the schedule. Yes, ASCII art, Jacob Taylor. Jacob Taylor wasn't even born when that was going on. Such a retro kind of guy, right?
I remember all those cracked games on my Apple IIe, Joust and Conan.
Oh yeah,
and
Oh yeah,
Ultima.
I was the Commodore 64 guy, right? Commodore 64 guy, and then to my Mac Plus, and that's how. Okay, what about support? Do you suck at answering questions? Do you answer questions? If people need help building this out, what is?
No. So MirrorSync support is free. And I am personally usually the one to answer almost all the MirrorSync support tech questions. Usually I get to them within 24 hours, almost always within 48 hours, unless I'm on vacation or I'm going crazy. There are certain things that we do bill for. For instance, if you just want us to do the installation for you, we can do that, but that's not free. So we're happy to just take over, you can just basically say, here, RDP into my server, here's my credentials, set it up for me, we'll do it. If you want our help doing the MirrorSync customization script, which I didn't talk about filtering. Let's say you only want certain people to get certain records, instead of everybody get everything. You can customize the MirrorSync script to control who gets what. We can help you with that. The support actually gets easier and easier as new versions of MirrorSync come out, because as we fix things and improve things, we just get less and less support questions. So it's not actually too much of my time to answer the support questions, because we've gotten down to the point where there aren't that many of them. But I think I'm very, very confident in saying that we can take care of your support questions.
All right, cool. All right, well, this is awesome as always. You folks have been great here. I know we ran late. It's almost been coming up on 90 minutes here, more than 90 minutes. I do apologize for that, but I don't want to stop an awesome presentation that's so essential to the FileMaker platform. Once again, my goal is to make sure that we promote and publish and talk about things that are going to help you be successful as you play doctor with the organizations you work in, when you're trying to save them from imminent death and dismemberment by great business efficiency. That's what the FileMaker platform allows you to do. You get to play business doctor. So that's awesome. So yeah, and once again, we'll be doing a newsletter probably on Saturday. We'll have the recording of this hopefully cleaned up. It's going to be a long one, but Jesse didn't say the F word too much, so it should be pretty easy to clean up. Any other final question? If you folks have, Jesse is quite talented. He's really busy. However, him coming here, I want you to support him. So if you need a sync, go buy his product. Go buy Monkey Break. Go buy the products for the people that help train you. If they're willing to come here and put their time out and help educate you and train you, definitely go out and support their product. Go do that. That's awesome.
Richard, thanks a lot for having me on.
All right. Well, I'm going to run the credits today. I appreciate everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is for beginners and maybe intermediates. Pretty basic stuff. So if you're beginner, intermediate, come in. If you're a senior person and you want to throw frogs, that's fine too. So that's it. Thank you, Jesse Barnum. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Richard.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.